Dear friends, let's read The Salt Inspector, written by Munshi Premchand. Let's begin with the story. When a new department was established to put a ban on the open trading of salt, people started trading it illegally. A lot of crooked methods were created to achieve this purpose. Some bribed, whilst others smuggled. The officers were having a great time. People even gave up the honorable position of patwari and sought employment in this department. Even lawyers yearned to occupy the position of an inspector in this department. This was the time when people perceived English education and Christianity as the same thing. As Persian was the dominant language of that time, people who were well versed and well read in the Persian language were appointed to the highest positions. During this time, Munshi Vanchidhar had also completed his studies and was looking for a job. He had read the unrequited love story of Zulaikha and rated the love stories of Majnu and Farhad way above the achievements of Nal and Neil and the discovery of America. His father, an experienced old man, advised the young man, "Son, you know the sad plight of our house? We are under heavy debts. There are young girls in the house who will soon reach a marriageable age. I am just an old tree that would collapse at any moment. Now it is time for you to take up the responsibilities on your shoulders as you are the owner of the house. While searching for a job, get least bothered by the position and status that entails with the job. It is like the mausoleum of the peer. Most importantly, keep an eye on the offerings that you would get. Therefore, you must search for a job that gives you the additional benefits along with your income. The monthly salary is like the full moon, visible just for a single day and gradually wanes away by each passing day until it completely disappears from the sky. The additional income is like a flowing stream that will quench all your thirst. Salary received from a man's won't promise any increment, but God might bless you with some additional source of income that would bring you prosperity. You are smart enough to take decisions, and I don't think there is any need for me to handhold you. There is a great need of discretion in this matter. You must learn to use your understanding. Act wise, and while making a decision, keep in mind the needs and opportunities available which would act to your benefit. Always remember, it becomes an authoritative right to be tough with a person who needs favors from you, but it is difficult to tame the one who does not need any. That is the only advice that I can give you to survive in the world." After this, the father gave his blessings. Vanshidhar was an obedient son. He listened attentively to his father's advice and then left his home. In this vast world, patience was his friend, intellect his guide, and self radiance his aid. Fortune favored him and he was selected for the prestigious post of the salt inspector. He earned a good salary and there was no limit to his additional income. When the old Munshi heard about this, his happiness knew no bounds. His creditors softened their behavior towards him and the hope of bringing an old festivities was revived. The neighbors grew extremely jealous of him. It was a wintry night. The constables and security guards of the salt department were completely drunk. It had been 6 months since Munshi Vanchidhar took charge of the work. He had won the hearts of everyone with his behavioral efficiency and had become a trustworthy person. The Yamuna River flowed about a mile away from the salt department's office. A boat bridge was built over the river. The inspector had shut the doors and was sleeping peacefully. Suddenly he woke up to the commotion of bullock carts and shouts of boatmen. He was perplexed to see the carts crossing the river at this hour. Surely there was something going on. His logical conclusion further strengthened his suspicion. He got up and dressed himself in his uniform, put his pistol in his pocket, and rode towards the bridge on his horse. He saw that a long queue of bullock carts was moving across the bridge. He asked angrily, "Whose cart are these?" There was a silence for a few moments. Then the men whispered among themselves, and one of them replied, "They belong to Pandit Alopiddin." "Who is Pandit Alopiddin?" "Of Dataganj?" Munshi Vanchidhar was shocked. Pandit Alopiddin was the most reputed landlord in this area. He had a huge business with a turnover of lakhs of rupees. Every trader in the area was indebted to him. He had established business and had several workers employed in his service. The English officers used to come to his area as guests and engaged their time in hunting. The hospitality went on round the year. Vanchidhar asked, "Where are the vehicles going?" "Kanpur." When he asked about the contents of the vehicles, a pin drop silence ensued. When he got no answer, he asked loudly, "Are you all dumb? What is inside these vehicles?" When he didn't get an answer, he went near the vehicle, inspected it, and found salt in huge quantities. Pandit Alopiddin was following the convoy in his royal chariot, lying half asleep and half awake. The news of this accidental disaster reached Pandit Alopiddin. Some of the cart drivers came and told him, "Panditji, the salt inspector has stopped our carts. He is standing by the river bank and is calling you." Pandit Alopiddin had an unwavering faith in Goddess Lakshmi. He used to say that Goddess Lakshmi ruled not just the earth but also the heaven. Justice and ethics were mere playthings of Goddess Lakshmi, as she could make them dance to her tune. Strutting his head with pride, he said, "You go, I am coming." Say this, he took out a pan and ate it. He covered himself in a quilt and said, "Greetings, Babuji. Tell me, what blunder did I commit to have compelled you to stop all my vehicles from crossing the bridge? You must be kind to Brahmins like us." Vanchidhar replied, "By the order of the government." Pandit Alopiddin laughed and said, "I don't know about any government order. You are the only government that I know of. Both of us are like family. How can I go against you? Why did you bother to come here? I was coming to meet you. How can we pass through this place and not make an offering to the God who resides here?" Vanchidhar was not at all affected by such temptation of wealth. Honesty was all that he believed in. He replied harshly, "Don't take me as one of those who sell their honesty for a few rupees. You are under arrest and you are bound to come with us. That's it. Let's not waste our time by beating around the bush. The decision has been already made. Jamadar Badlu Singh, I order you to take him into custody." Panditji was stunned. Chaos hustled among the cart. Perhaps this was the first time in his life when Panditji was compelled to listen to such rude remarks. Badlu Singh went forward but could not muster the courage to hold his hand. Panditji had never seen such righteousness insult his wealth before. He took Vanchidhar as a clumsy young man who had not engrossed himself in worldly pleasures yet. So he requested in a humble tone, "Babu Sahib, I request you not to do that. I would be ruined. All my reputation would turn to dust. What would you get by insulting me? I am not a stranger to you." Vanchidhar firmly stood by his decision and said, "I don't want to hear anything." Panditji felt the ground slipping from under his feet. This came as a blow to his prestige and self-respect. But he still had full confidence in the power of money. He said to his assistant, "Please gift 1,000 rupees to Babu Sahib. He is behaving like a hungry lion." Vanchidhar got angry and said, 1,000 rupees? Even 1 lakh rupees won't tempt me to divert from the path of truth." Panditji was frustrated to see such perseverance of righteousness and the sacrificial spirit that was rare even among gods. Both the powers of righteousness and wealth were at war with each other. From 1 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, and finally 20,000 rupees were offered to the inspector. Vanchidhar's honesty was unshakable. It stood like a mountain against Panditji's numerical strength. Depressed, Panditji said, "I cannot go beyond this. You may do as you wish." Vanchidhar shouted at his Jamadar. Badlu Singh cursed the inspector in his heart and moved towards Panditji. Panditji drew back in fright. He spoke in an extremely humble tone. "Babu Sahib, please, have mercy on me. I am ready to compensate with 25,000. It is impossible. 30,000? No way. Not even if I offer you 40,000? Not even 40 lakhs. Don't you understand? Badlu Singh, take this man into custody immediately." Righteousness had trampled over wealth under its foot. Panditji saw a healthy man advancing towards him with the handcuffs. He looked around helplessly with pleading eyes. Then he fell down unconscious. As soon as the dawn came, the same story could be heard from everyone, be it old or young. Every single being was commenting on Panditji's conduct and criticizing him as if he was the only sinner in the world. The milkman who sold adulterated milk, the officers who made false entries, and the babus who travelled in trains without tickets, the money lenders and traders who made fraudulent documents, everyone was looking down upon Panditji as if they had never sinned before. When the accused Panditji arrived at the court the next day, his head hung low out of shame. This created a commotion in the city. Such was the density of the crowd that one would be unable to mark the difference between the walls and the roof. Panditji was considered as the most powerful of all. The officers were his devotees, clerks his servitors, the lawyers and attorneys his obedient servants, and orderlies, peons and watchmen as his voluntary slaves. The moment people saw him, they ran towards him from all directions. People were surprised not because Panditji had committed this deed, but because they wondered how did he come into the clutches of law. He was a man of wealth and had the capability to make anything possible. Then why would the police catch him? Every person was sympathizing with him. An army of lawyers was immediately prepared to fight for the case. On the grounds of justice began a battle of righteousness and wealth. Vanshidhar was standing silently. He had no defense except the force of the truth and no weapons except the bare facts on his side. There were some witnesses, but he knew that they could easily be lured with money. Vanshidhar felt that even justice was not on his side. It was a court of justice, but it severely reeked with partiality. But justice and partiality had nothing in common. When there was a bias, one could never expect justice there. The case soon came to a close. The deputy magistrate's judgment states the evidences against Panditji are false and misleading. It is impossible that such a reputed man would stoop so low for the sake of a little profit. It might be possible that Munshi Vanshidhar is not completely wrong, but because of his rude and inconsiderate behavior, a good man had to go through such an ordeal. It is good that he is alert and attentive towards his work, but his obsession with honesty had corrupted his ability to think. He needs to be more careful in the future. The lawyers heard this decision and leapt with joy. Panditji came out with a smile on his face. His near and dear ones began to rain money all around him. The sea of generosity was on a high tide, and the waves had shaken the very foundations of the court. When Vanshidhar came outside, satirical comments started showering on him from all sides. The peons mocked him by saluting him again and again. But at this moment, every harsh word or gesture was fueling the fire of his pride. Perhaps he would not have walked with such pride if he had won the case. He was proud to have upheld his principles and stand with honesty by his side. He lost respect for the people who were disloyal to their job and used their prestigious titles to extract money. Vanshidhar was paying the price of making wealth as his enemy. Hardly a week had passed when his termination letter arrived. He had been punished for doing his duty with complete honesty. With utter grief and sorrow, he went back to his home. His father was very angry with him. Even after thoroughly guiding him, the boy paid no attention to his advice. He would always have his way. He wants me to face the demands of the wine seller and butcher and live like a saint in my old age, and that too in such a meager salary. But this boy had to insult and display his honesty everywhere. His thoughts are so poor. All his education has been wastage and nothing else. When Vanshidhar came home in his dejected state after a few days, the old man grew furious and started beating his head and said, "I feel like breaking your head as well as mine." Out of anger, he uttered many harsh words, and if Vanshidhar had not vanished from his side, his anger would have aggravated wildly. The old mother was also unhappy. All her wishes to visit Jagannath and Rameshwaram had turned to dust. Even his wife was so upset that she did not even talk to him for several days. A week had passed. It was evening. The old Munshiji was busy praying. Suddenly, a decorative chariot stopped at their door. It had green and pink curtains, a beautiful pair of well built oxen with a blue bell and copper horns. It was accompanied by many servants carrying sticks on their shoulders. When Munshiji ran out to welcome the visitor, he saw that it was Panditji. He bowed his head in salutation and started flattering him. We have been fortunate that you have come to our house. You are our God. Please forgive us. What can we do if our son turned out to be a brat? God must keep one sonless rather than giving such a shameless son. Panditji said, No, brother, you must not say that. Munshiji replied, Then what should I call such a son? Panditji said in an affectionate voice, How many people are there in this world that are loyal to their work and are ready to sacrifice everything to maintain their righteousness? Rather than tarnishing these people, enhance the glory of their family and ancestors? Panditji said to Vanshidhar, Inspector Sahab, do not consider it as mere flattery. I do not need to put so much effort to flatter anyone. The other night you took me into custody with the power of your authority, but today I have willingly come into your arrest. I have seen thousands of people and have come across many top officials, but only you were the only one who defeated me. With the power of wealth, I had made everyone a slave, but I was wrong. Sir, with your permission, I would like to make a request. When Vanshidhar saw Panditji advancing towards him, he got up from his seat and welcomed him courteously, with his self-respect intact. He thought that his fellow had come there to insult and humiliate him. He did not even try to apologize and did not like the army attitude of his father. But when he heard his words, all the bitterness of his heart vanished. He glanced at Panditji's face, which radiated sincerity. This humbled his pride. He said shyly, It is your generosity that you are saying such things to me. Please forgive me for my insolence. The laws of righteousness had bound me. Otherwise, I am your humble servant. Panditji said humbly, You had not accepted my request the night of my arrest, but today you would have to accept my request. Vanshidhar said, What can I do for you? I will try to serve you in the best possible manner. Panditji took out a stamped paper and kept it in front of Vanshidhar. Then he said, Please accept this job and sign this paper. I am a Brahmin. I won't leave until you have accepted my request. Vanshidhar read the paper and his eyes sparkled with tears of gratitude. Panditji had appointed him the permanent manager of his entire wealth and property. Along with an annual income of 6,000 rupees, he was offered daily expenses, a horse for commutation, and a bungalow to live in with the assistance of a few servants. He said in a trembling voice, I lack words to praise such generosity, but I do not deserve such a high post. Panditji said with a smile, I am in need of an undeserving candidate like you. Vanshidhar replied, I am your servant. It would be my good fortune to work for a famous and noble person like you. But I do not possess the knowledge, the wisdom, or the temperament that would make up for my weaknesses. For such a great work, you need an experienced and far-sighted man. Panditji took out a pen, handed the pen to Vanshidhar and said, I don't need scholarship, talent, sensibility, experience, or work efficiency. I know the value of these attributes. Luckily, I have been given the jewel that is superior to talent and scholarship. Now, I request you to sign the paper without thinking about anything else. I pray to God that may He keep you steadfast, fearless, and rude, and completely committed to His righteousness no matter what came His way. With twinkling eyes, Vanshidhar looked towards Panditji and a feeling of devotion and reverence filled him. He signed the paper with trembling hands. At last, righteousness triumphed over evil and Panditji joyfully hugged Vanshidhar. So friends, this is the end of the story. Please stay tuned for the next story.